Hey guys, I don't want to just throw you into an activity today without making sure that you have a basis for what you're looking at. So I put together this slide presentation. You can find the slides on Schoology. So if you want to get those and take notes in the bottom of each slide, that's completely up to you. But we need to go through two important terms today. These are terms I've already brought up. These are terms that you're going to hear in anything government related, and I think it is so critical that you understand exactly what they mean and how they apply to you. So the two terms that we are going to cover today are what is a constituent and what are constituencies. Now, the reality is from where you are right now, you are a constituent to 9 different people, give or take. I mean, it could be, you could look at it as 9, you could probably look at it as 13, depending on how you look at your city government. And so you look at your address where you live. Your address is actually part of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 constituencies right off the top of my head. So that makes you a constituent to all of those individuals. And so we're going to go through and make sure we understand the difference between these terms. All right, so if I can get this to work. All right, so when I say constituency or constituent, for many of you, those are brand new terms. So that's why I'm taking the time to go through this and not just throw you into an activity in which those terms don't make sense to you. So the first thing I want to do is I want to define what is a constituent. Now, the internet will say it's a voting member of a community. I like to look at a constituent as the people an elected official represents. Because when someone is elected, they are accepting the task of representing a population of people. And depending on which constituency it is they are elected from, the people they're representing might be a different group of people than other members in different elected positions. So a constituent is a person or a population that an elected official is tasked to represent the interests of. So you are a constituent because there are people that have been elected to represent an area in which you live. So that's one term. Next one, whoops, that's not correct. Going too fast. Constituency then. Internet has one definition, but I like to look at constituency as the territory or the whole population someone who's been elected is tasked to represent. And we're going to go through these. So as I go through these, if you get confused on my use of the term constituent or my use of the term constituency, you can go back to these definitions and they'll help you get through this. So the first question I have, and it kind of popped up before, is who represents you because you live in the United States? You're living in the United States as a whole population. Take away all these borders and just consider, I know Alaska, Hawaii aren't on here. That's unfortunate, but that's the map I chose. So you take away all these lines of individual states, and all you're left with is just a country. And so when we look at the United States as a whole, are you living in a constituency that is represented by a single person? And the answer is technically yes. There's a lot of people who still believe he is not the president, and that, I can't fight that anymore. But by election results, the president of the United States is tasked with representing every person in the United States. You are a constituent to Joe Biden, Joe Biden's constituency is the entire United States. Now, who represents you because you live in the state of Minnesota, and this is not working with the top of my screen, so we'll just have to bear with this. So who represents you because you live in Minnesota? Well, as you've seen, that does depend. And it depends on if we're talking about federal, state, or local governments, because we are represented at three very distinct different levels. We're represented at the federal level for all of the United States. We're represented as an individual subunit, which is the state of Minnesota. And then Minnesota gets broken into more divisions within. So if we're just talking about the federal government, so we know Biden represents all the people of the United States and their territories. But then at the federal level, Minnesota as a whole is represented by 2 U.S. senators. Every state gets 2 U.S. senators. And we look at our senators based on what we refer to as junior senior senators. The senator who has more experience in the U.S. Senate is referred to as our senior senator, and the senator with less experience or seniority in the U.S. Senate is referred to as our junior senator. So these are Minnesota's 2 U.S. senators. They represent the entire state of Minnesota, but they're representing it at the federal level of government. So when it comes to issues of federal policy, every state has their 2 senators that are equally representing the entire population. It isn't to say that one represents northern Minnesota, one represents southern Minnesota. It doesn't work that way. They both represent everybody in the state of Minnesota equally. Okay, so now we've looked at 3. We've had the president, 2 U.S. senators. You are a constituent to 3 different people, but your address hasn't changed. You're still living in the same place. So when we ask Biden, what is your constituency? He will say the entire United States and its territories. We ask either one of these senators, what is your constituency? They will say the entire state of Minnesota, but they're representing at a federal level. Now, if we're talking state level, then the state of Minnesota is represented by our governor. And this is our governor, Tim Walz. He represents all the people of the state of Minnesota, but he does so at the state level. Okay? So, like the president oversees the entire nation, a governor is overseeing his entire state. Now, again, not everyone's going to like who the person is, but when they're elected, they take on the task and the charge of representing the entire population of the state or the entire population of their constituency, and Governor Walz's constituency is the entire state of Minnesota. So again, it got cut off, but his constituency includes all the people of our state. Do we have anyone else? It doesn't end there, because when I started, I said, you are a constituent, somebody's representing you, and there's probably 9, or I said 13. I'll still get to why I flip between 9 and 13. So let's keep going. Minnesota is broken into other federal, state, and local constituencies. So we take the state of Minnesota and it gets broken into smaller units. We've looked at the big picture. Who represents the entire nation? Who represents the state as a whole? 2 senators at the federal level and the governor at the state level. But let's look at how we break that state up. Minnesota is also represented in the U.S. government in Washington, D.C., and how we divide that state is we break them into congressional districts. So when we look at Minnesota, Minnesota is actually broken into 8 congressional districts. There are 435 congressional districts throughout the United States. Okay. And this is the part of our government that is divided by population. And you're going to look at the activity that you're going to work on after this. You're going to look at how those districts change after a U.S. census. A lot of changes have just been implemented here in Minnesota, which is going to affect the election in November. And it is because we had a census in 2020 and all of these congressional districts have been redrawn. I was actually talking to another social studies teacher yesterday, and he just realized that he was in the 4th congressional district, but because of how the lines have shifted because of the census, he didn't move, but he's actually now part of the 2nd congressional district. So everybody that lives in a district, everybody that lives in this district, they are the constituents of the representative who represents that district. So when we ask an individual representative, who's your constituency, they will say my district, not the entire state, but my district, unless we're referencing the states that only have one congressional district. So each district has one representative. So if there are 435 districts in the U.S. House, that means we have 435 congressional districts nationwide. Minnesota is also divided into legislative districts that represent us at the state government in St. Paul. So anything that's federal is working on federal topics, federal legislation, laws that apply to all the states, whereas our legislative districts are only going to affect Minnesota. These are the people that work in St. Paul that are making laws that affect the state of Minnesota. It doesn't matter to Wisconsin. It doesn't matter to Iowa, Washington State, Texas, because each of those states also has their own legislative system where they make laws for the state level. So when we get into looking at the state legislative district, we see what looks like a very big mess. Because in Minnesota, Minnesota is divided into 67 Senate districts for St. Paul, and each of those Senate districts is split in half, and they're identified as A and B, and each one of those split Senate districts is a representative. So if we have 67 Senate districts in St. Paul, we have 134 House districts representing the state of Minnesota in St. Paul at our state level government. And I know this is a lot to take in, but I just want you just to let some of that absorb as we continue. So again, I'm just repeating myself here. 67 Senate districts and 134 House districts. That is only representing us at a state level for state legislation. Okay, these are not the two senators that I showed you the picture of before. These are entirely different set of people, and they have a smaller constituency, a smaller territory, because the state is divided equally into these legislative districts. So we refer to legislative districts as the state, and we refer to congressional districts as the federal. No, that is not it. Minnesota is also divided into cities, and cities have their own set of constituencies. So when a city is created and recognized by the state, they have their own set of local government officials that represent the people in their city. So who am I a constituent to in the city of Oakdale? Actually, we're backing it up. When we look at the city of Oakdale, you have a mayor who represents all of the people in the city, and then there is a city council. Now, Oakdale has made a decision, and they can, as a city, that their city council are called at-large members, meaning they don't represent a specific part of Oakdale. They represent the entire city of Oakdale rather than dividing Oakdale into smaller units like they do for Congress, like they do for our state legislature. The city of Oakdale says we're going to have the 4 or 5 city council members represent everybody. So that's where I got that whole, you might be represented by 9, but when we look at city government, it could be as high as 13, 14, depending on what city you live in. So who am I? Am I a constituent to? Well, at the federal level, let's just go through this again. Here are 2 of them. Okay, the president, you are a constituent to the president because his constituency, the territory he represents, is the entire United States. You are a constituent to each of these U.S. senators because they represent the entire United States at the federal level in Washington, D.C., in the United States Senate. You are also a constituent to one of these, not all 8, only one, because you only live in one congressional district. So these are the representatives that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they represent each congressional district. So Betty McCollum is very likely the representative for you because you live in the 4th congressional district. I live in the 6th congressional district, so the one of the 8 is my representative, is Representative Tom Emmer. Now, unfortunately, this representative, Jim Hagedorn, he passed away a week and a half ago. And so his position is actually open, and Governor Walz has the constitutional right to set an election to fill that position, and that is already in the works. So at the federal level, you are a constituent to the president, 2 senators, and a representative. So 4 people are representing you at the federal level. What about the state level? Well, we know Governor Walz because he represents everybody in the state of Minnesota, but then you have 1 member of the Minnesota Senate and 1 member of the Minnesota House, and they are representing you on business related to Minnesota state laws. So now we've got president, 2 senators, a representative, the governor, a Minnesota representative, and a Minnesota senator. So there's 7. So then we go in and we look at the city level. We have a mayor, and then there are city council members, and this is the city of Oakdale. So this mayor represents you. There's 8. And then depending on how you look at your city government, all 4 of those people could realistically represent you. Some cities, they break them into wards, and 1 member of the city council represents a ward, which is a smaller unit of a city. So it is actually quite a few people that are representing you. So I just want to make sure if you have questions following this, I absolutely want you to write them down as they come across, because I want to make sure that tomorrow we have a chance to go through any questions you have on this concept. It is not an easy concept. I get it. That is why I'm being very deliberate and taking the time to make sure you're on track and all of this makes sense. So I'm going to escape out of that. And like I said, I'll link this. I haven't linked it as of yet, but it'll be in Schoology. The activity that you're going to be asked to work on now is a multiple part activity. And so this is also in Schoology. So you're going to actually excuse me, start looking at who specifically are my people, who represents me. And one of the coolest sites is to go to this poll finder. Now, poll finder is through the Minnesota Secretary of State's office. And what you're going to do is I'm going to use the school's address. So I'm going to go to this zip code. I'm going to go to 828 and I'm going to find the street. Let me find Greenway. I think I'm going right past. There's Greenway. And I'm going to hit go. Now, what I'm going to find is quite a bit of information to fill in here. So president, we should know president. Okay, you are a constituent to the president. He is a Democrat. So you'll pull that down and you'll see who you're represented with. Which congressional district do you live in? You can find that information on the results that come up from the Secretary of State's office. So Tartan High School is actually in the 4th district. So I would go into here and I would put in the 4th district. Now, you're going to have to go in and figure out who are Minnesota's 2 senators and which one has seniority, making her the senior senator, and which one has the junior seniority, making her the junior senator. You have to figure that out. Now, if I go into my voter information and I click onto 4, it's going to take me to a map that shows me Congressional District 4. But if I want to find out who represents me, who specifically is my United States representative in that district, I'm able to go to this page and start looking because it's by state and it's by district. So that is all linked there for you. Then we have Minnesota governor. We have your Minnesota Senate district. Well, how am I supposed to find that? Well, let's go back to this and it will tell you your Minnesota Senate district, Tartan's Minnesota Senate district is 53. Remember, there are 67. Each of those districts is broken into an A and a B. Minnesota House for Tartan is 53A. Well, where am I going to find their names? I cannot make this easier for you. I have linked this all for you. So that is how you're going to finish this. Then using this link, you're going to answer these questions. And this will talk about the history of constituencies. Keep in mind, we have 435 House members. Each of them has a district. As our population grows, we don't increase the number of districts we have in Congress. We increase the population of how many people are in each district. So what you're looking at is how many people were each representative responsible to represent when we started as a nation, and how big has that number gotten now. Now, if you look across the bottom, and I can't show you this because my screen is locked in terms of what I can show you, but underneath, you're going to see 4 tabs. The one you're looking at with me right now is the constituency information or constituent information. The next tab is dealing with congressional redistricting. And that is what has just been presented to the public. Since the 2020 census, we've had to reshift boundaries because populations have shifted. So I've linked sites for you to find this information. Then, as long as we're talking about constituency and who's representing you, it is only logical that we actually take the next step and start looking at the fact that you're going to have this right to vote November. And so I want to go through the process of registering. And so the link here will take you exactly where you need to go to find the answers to these questions. And then the 4th tab is a number of links, link 1, 2, and 3, and they are going to help you answer the remainder of the questions on this formative assessment. So you have the remainder of the hour today to work on this, and be aware that not everyone's going to have the same constituencies. So you really can't go and just partner up and say, okay, let's just, you do this section, you do this section, because they're not all the same based on where you live. So I am having an expectation that you are doing this on your own, and that when you are completely finished, you will submit that. Now, as of this moment in my life, I do not have it all added into Schoology. I will do so. And so it will be then week 7, and then I will have everything linked in week 7. And when I say I'll have everything linked, I will have this slideshow and this assignment will be there, so that when I'm done with all of this talking, I guess that's the best way I can say it, then you can get started on this. And again, I do appreciate that you're very understanding of why I'm not there. But I didn't want to lose a day of instruction because I wasn't there. So I do appreciate the work you're putting in, and I would like to have this submitted by Wednesday at 8 a.m. So I'm going to give you the rest of the day tomorrow, because I know with finals and such, that's a lot of stuff. So this will be due on Wednesday, but if you use the rest of the class time, you should get quite a bit of it done. So I'm done talking, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.